All right, so I'm Dr. Lum Frundi. I am a pediatrician and the founder of Generational Wellbeing. I am very passionate about helping parents to create sustainable, healthy habits for themselves and for their kids because, we know healthy habits is a big way of really preventing chronic disease, which is on the rise today. And I am joined by Dr. Michelle Quirk, who's going to introduce herself to us.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Dr. Michelle Quirk. I'm a pediatrician and a run coach, and I'm very passionate about helping to make running easy and fun for busy professionals like ourselves. Yeah, and I'm the founder of Mindful Marathon.
Welcome, welcome, and thank you for joining me. So today we're talking about really how to conserve energy while running or exercising, and really mainly because it's still very much hot outside, and we know running when it's hot or really exercising when it's hot, your energy levels go down. Just the fact of just going outside itself is work.
It is.
I really enjoy running, and I'll start by saying that I really run for energy. I run because I know the outcome. When I run or when I exercise, especially in the morning, I am more focused at work. I have more energy to complete my day and stuff. So if it's hot outside and that um, kind of takes away from that outcome we're looking for. So Dr. Michelle is here to really tell us how we can really make it where we're getting that primary outcome, whether it's energy, whether it's focus, whether it's emotional well-being for you. Like how can we really make it or do it right?
Yeah, well, running in the summer and running in the heat and the humidity is definitely a challenge. And, I live in the Northeast and we have the nice four seasons, but it seems like every year when summer comes around, it really hits me every time. Like, oh, okay, here we are. So I have I have lots of tips for running in the heat and kind of how to keep ourselves cool in the heat. And there's lots of different things you can do. So we'll keep it simple. We were talking earlier, Dr. Lum and I, about this. And one of the big things you can do is really think about the when and the where. So if we can't change the weather, right? It is what it is. But we can change, the time of day that we're out there in the heat of the day, and think about when the sun will be, the highest, and maybe try to avoid that. So thinking about the when, usually I would try to have my athletes get out there either as early in the morning as possible, or if that doesn't sound good to you, then in the evening when the sun goes down. So I am more of a morning runner, but before the sun is really high in the sky, trying to get out there early, and then think about where you're going to go. So if you can find maybe a trail with some tree cover for shade, maybe it would be a little bit better than trying to run on the sidewalk in the middle of the city here where I live, where the sun is beating down. So trying to, find some shade is always a good idea. And like I said, if you're not a morning person, the evening, it can still be quite hot until that sun starts going down, but same idea there. So you're just trying to stay out of the main part of the day. So to try to keep yourself the coolest. So that's the sort of the when and the where.
Absolutely, such great tips, and especially since too, because when you're running in the sun, your body's using up that energy to cool itself. So the reason why you want to find an area where it's shaded, because then you have that energy to put into the run, as opposed to your body using that energy to cool itself. That would lead to fatigue. And I've seen a lot of people say, I had to cut my run short because it became so hot outside and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing I would say, we could talk about different kinds of gear that would be helpful, but I think to keep it simple, when you're going out to run in the heat, you want to wear materials that wick your sweat away from your body. So cotton is not your friend in this case. So cotton is going to soak up all the water, and you'll be running with like a 50-pound t-shirt on, which won't feel so good. So yeah, if you can find some wicking material, run with, I would like to say, as little clothing as possible to keep yourself cool. And the other thing you can do, a nice tip I like, if you run with a hat, first of all, it'll help shade you from the sun, but you can also put like a cool rag or like a cooling towel, run it under a nice cold water before you go out and stick it in your hat. And it sounds crazy, but it'll really feel nice and cool, and especially on your neck. So just trying to keep the core temperature down is key, and your gear can help you to do that.
Absolutely. And speaking of the cotton t-shirts, I have a story about that one. I actually had to stop my run early because I had a t-shirt, I said cotton, it absorbs everything, but I wasn't thinking about the fact that once you're sweating, it's absorbing it and it gets heavier and
Yes.
heavier as the run goes. So it's like you're carrying extra weight as opposed to shedding it off. So yes, absolutely. I've been at that end too.
Me too. I think we've all been there. And some of the races, the fun races that we do, like to give out cotton t-shirts. But I often wear those for, being around town and not actually for running.
Right. And what about shoes? Shoes is a big one too. I think we've talked about this before too, where when I started running too, I had shoes that were not optimal. And now I can see the difference as I've started paying attention to the gears where it's like my shoes, it feels like they're pushing me to keep going as opposed to I'm struggling, like, okay, we have to go.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of gear for runners, I think your shoes are probably your most important piece of gear that you can invest in. And my usual advice is to go and get fitted at a running store if you have one near you. Because if you try to, go on Amazon or just Google running shoes, you'll go down a rabbit hole. There's so many brands and types within the brand, and really you want to know, your history with running, if you've had any injuries before, shoes that you've tried in the past and either liked or didn't like, how many miles are on your current shoes. If you have a pair of sneakers and maybe you haven't worn them in a while or you're not sure how many miles are on there, you can always bring them with you to the running store. They can have a look at the soles and get an idea of, whether you need to get a new pair or not. But I always recommend to go see them rather than just randomly pick something, pick the shoe that I wear, because it's really based on my foot and my arch and my random injury history. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, I want to add on to that, take us to another gear where now, since I started really training, I signed up for Dr. Michelle's 5K run, which I was talking to her about it as I started really paying attention to the runs. I noticed that no two runs are the same. And for you to be able to go out there and really put yourself out there to run every day, it has to be different, or else it becomes like this mundane, every day becomes boring. But as we start running too, you want to be able to pay attention to your body and know when to slow down or when to stop or when to speed it up a little bit. So what tips do you have for us, Dr. Michelle, about knowing when to slow down or when to really pick it up a little bit?
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about, and it's especially important when you're out there running in the heat. So I like, especially with newer runners, I like to try to get my athletes to really pay attention to how they're feeling on any given run and really tap into their, we call it RPE, like rate of perceived effort. So, when you first start out, the object is for this to be an enjoyable experience. Like, we want it to feel comfortable and enjoyable. You don't want to go out there and feel like you're half dead when you come back home. And I think
Right.
this is probably one of the most common mistakes that newer runners make, just trying to go out there and run as hard and as fast as you can. And usually that results in feeling maybe discouraged, frustrated, defeated, angry. that it didn't feel so good. And so the best advice I could give is to try to really pay attention to how you're feeling. And things to pay attention to would be, are you huffing and puffing? If you and I were out for a jog together, would we be able to carry on a conversation? Maybe not as comfortable as this, right? But we could talk. That's sort of a conversational effort. Are you, do you feel like your heart is beating out of your chest? Are you getting really red in the face, especially in the heat of summer? Like the heat right away will, speed up your heart rate. And hopefully, as we adapt to the heat, we're sweating more. And as our sweat evaporates, we'll feel cooler. But you can never go wrong by trying to slow down your pace. And in the heat, that might look like a few different things. So if you're used to jogging continuously, maybe we just have to slow the pace. But that can also mean taking more walk breaks. If you've heard of the run walk technique, you run for a short period of time and then you walk for a short period of time and kind of alternate. And so sometimes when it's really hot here, I switch from continuous running and use run walk in the middle of the summer, and it's fine. But that keeps my level of effort much, much lower. So I try to have people keep a little journal. So you go out for your run and you come back and you write down like, hey, how did that feel? Did I feel strong? Did I feel very out of breath? Did I feel like it was comfortable? And that's how you can kind of just check in with yourself to know, did it feel easy, or like be honest with yourself. Because if you're saying like, well, I ran so hard, but I guess it was my easy pace, but not really. So in the summer, our paces just slow down, and that's okay. In the fall, when it gets cooler, you'll be running way faster.
Absolutely, and also knowing that your pace, everyone's pace is very different on each day too. So my pace is very different from yours, which is very different from someone else's. So my slow may not be necessarily someone else's slow, or my highest intensity may be mine, but not the next person, right?
Exactly. And, in the summer, sometimes what I use, this will get like a little bit of mathematics, but not too much. So what I like to do, so for example, this past Sunday, my husband and I ran a 10K race in the city, and we had planned to race it, like go at our 10K pace. But the temperature was like 70 degrees here, and the dew point was 70 something, which translation is this is uncomfortable. These are like uncomfortable conditions to race in. So you add those together, the temperature plus the dew point, and it was somewhere near 145, which is just very uncomfortable. There are calculators that you can look. So if let's say your easy pace is usually like a 12-minute mile, if I put in a temperature plus a dew point of 145, my new easy pace, taking into account the heat, might be a 13-minute mile. Like it can be that much longer. So it just gives you an idea if you'd rather look at the math and say, hey, how much should I slow my pace? Those calculators online will give you at least somewhat of an idea, but I would also keep checking in with yourself. Like your rate of perceived effort is almost more important than those numbers. But using those two together, you can kind of get a sense of where to start.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Those were some amazing tips. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we jump off?
Yeah, I think just, be encouraged. The summer will be over soon, at least here in the Northeast. And so if you're out there, strong work getting out there. Like putting on your shoes and getting out there is always the hardest step sometimes. And really, if you've been training through the summer, your body, it will adapt to the heat. And in the fall, it will feel so good.
Absolutely. And you have another 5K run coming up this fall, right?
Yeah. So you had signed up so we did a spring one, and we have a fall virtual 5K that will be coming up. It's open for registration now, but I haven't talked about it yet. I have another program coming soon, and right after that, I will release it with how many registrations are left.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us, Dr. Quirk, and I will see you at the 5K run.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.